Hey, this week I'm excited to talk to you about mental toughness training for divers. What we're going to do is we're going to take a quick tour through a variety of different kinds of mental toughness that apply to the sport of diving, a little bit different from what other sports have to deal with just because of some of the things that go on in our sport. But let's jump right in and let's talk about mental toughness for diving. So, obviously, mental toughness is required for the sport of diving. In fact, if you participate in the sport of diving in any way, frankly, you are demonstrating some mental toughness because there are plenty of people who never even sign up for a diving class. They're afraid to go that far. Just at the base level, we have to have some sort of courage here to participate in the activity. But as we get higher and higher in the levels of competition in our sport, perform more and more advanced and more complex tricks, we need different kinds of toughness, and we need plenty of it as we go along. Now, when we talk about toughness, we want to be clear. We're not talking about, just old-fashioned tough guy bravado. We're not talking about bullying. We're not talking about all of that garbage. What we're really talking about is how do you respond to adversity? So if we were talking about a car that hit one bump and fell apart and didn't work anymore would not be a tough car. That car is a marshmallow. What we want is a car that can handle some bumps in the road. And in the same way as we develop ourselves as athletes, we want to have that similar durability, that toughness. So when adversity strikes, when things get difficult, how do you navigate? What do you do moving forward? That has everything to do with mental toughness. So to put a fine point on it, it's our ability to manage our own mental state for long-term benefit, and that's a really valuable life skill. So there's a great quote from Viktor Frankl, a terrific author, and he writes, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. And I love that quote, and here's why. It tells you everything you need to know about your own responsibility over your actions. The world will do what the world is going to do, and you can't control it. You'll drive yourself crazy trying to control the world outside of you. But when things happen, when the world happens to you, how do you react? Do you react impulsively without thought? Do you act in ways that you later regret? Those are the sorts of things that we want to take control of. And as we mature as people and as athletes, we gain more and more skills in this area, right? Identifying this opportunity between when the thing happens to you and what you're going to do about it is crucial for your maturity, right? And your ability to pursue excellence. In the future is this ability to maintain emotional stability throughout a difficult situation. The other thing that's really key is that toughness is not like hair color or eye color or some other unchangeable characteristic about yourself. I wish my eyes were green instead of blue. Well, there's nothing I can do. But mental toughness is something you can change. It's like muscle strength. It's like flexibility. It's something that if you work on it, you can improve it, and you can make more progress than you realize. I watch this happen over and over again with kids who come in, and any little thing that happens to them is very upsetting, and they lose their composure. A little bit of a smack and they need to take 15 minutes off and they can't dive, right? But with experience and in a supportive environment, in the right atmosphere, those kids can really transform and develop the kind of toughness that is just so beneficial to them in the long run. Let's talk about different flavors of toughness that we deal with as divers. I think that there's 4 different modes of mental toughness that we can address here. The first is discipline. That's doing the daily work. That requires a certain kind of mental toughness to get back and go at it again and give it your best effort day after day. The second is courage, and that's really a differentiator in the sport of diving. There's not a lot of moments of real terror when you play tennis. We have to face dives that we've never done before. We have an awareness of the risks involved, smacking, of hitting the board, etc. So that's a really difficult challenge that divers face. The next mode of mental toughness here is poise, and that's the ability to regain your composure after things go badly. And that is certainly something that divers need. We all need that, and that's a feature of many sports, almost all sports, is this ability to recover. We have some particular situations in diving that put a point on it and make it a little bit interesting. Then the final mode that I want to talk about today is stability, and that is, how do you address continually improving over time? The phrase I like is sharpening the saw. How do we continually keep warding off burnout and maintaining our interest and keeping our motivation up? So let's dig into the first mode of mental toughness, and that is discipline. Again, what we're talking about is doing the daily work. Let's make a distinction between training and practice, and here's what I mean by that. As a higher level diver, when you start to get serious about competitive diving, you accept some standards, right? There's an amount of training hours that are required probably for the group that you're a member of, the team you're on. You have expectations. You're going to compete on the 1 meter board and on the 3 meter board and on the 5 meter platform. Those are standards that are set for your team, and you need to be very aware of what the expectations are that are coming from your coach and your team, and also willing to commit to that expectation if you're going to participate in that group. So that's the difference between training and practice to me, is that decision to commit. Right? So here's an example of practicing. Practicing is when you're at the back of the diving board and your friend is on the board and about to go, and you're making funny faces and trying to make them laugh and have a great time. That is a super fun environment in a summer league setting, or when you're just goofing off on the diving boards. It's great. In a more competitive environment, that's maybe not the appropriate action, because everybody who's in that group is there to train. They are serious about it. So accept the program that you are in and behave appropriately to that program, and train. Training is when you wouldn't think of skipping a group because you're going to have to compete, right? If I know that I have to compete fronts, backs, inwards, and reverses, I do not think it's a good idea to skip reverses for a week, right? So divers who are avoiding dives and hiding from dives, I would contend, are not training. They're practicing. They're goofing around, and they're not taking their diving list and their pursuit of excellence seriously. So first and foremost, decide that you are going to spend these hours at the pool, and someday we will be back at the pool. Spend those hours well. Don't waste any of that time. Don't waste it goofing around. Be goal-oriented. Grit is a word that we use a lot in sports these days. It comes from a terrific book right here, Grit by Angela Duckworth. I will give you a very brief summary. It is as follows. It turns out that people who work really hard and don't give up are the ones that succeed. That's pretty much the gist of the whole book, and there's tons of detail in here that is wonderful and absolutely worth it. But the big message is people who tend to not give up, stubborn, tenacious, relentless people, those are the people who succeed in life. And so you can use your time in diving to train yourself in that habit of completing tasks all the way through. It's so helpful to your ultimate goal, which is to compete well and to dive well and to master these dives. And it helps you to become a person with habits that lend themselves to pursuing excellence and succeeding. So gosh, you can't lose. Run with that. Get gritty. Read the book. If you want to know if you're really gritty, here's a great test. When the coach asks you to do 30 pike ups and then turns his or her back and looks away, do you still do 30 great pike ups? We can change the way we look at things in our training environment and situations to give ourselves the most benefit possible. And I highly advise this. Make a habit of doing the things that help you the most. So what are those things? One of the things that we know is going to happen is that circumstances are going to be less than perfect frequently. In diving, that usually means the water is really cold, or the air temperature is really cold, or the lighting is really bad, or the swim team is singing happy birthday at the top of their lungs while you're trying to do your new dive. All of these things are challenging. They're potentially irritating and distracting, and they could put you in a negative mindset unless you think about those things in a way that can benefit you. And here's my suggestion to you. It's all adversity training. When things go wrong, you need to rub your hands together and be delighted and love that madness, because that is training you to handle anything. So for example, we had a period where our pool was extremely cold, and emphasizing for the athletes that this is actually something that makes them stronger, helps them to turn that situation around in their head and make it a positive. And honestly, when they get to a meet later and it is freezing cold, the coach can come back and say, good thing we trained for this. And that gives you a little bit of confidence, and that can be the difference. Another characteristic that will really help you to maintain discipline on a day-to-day grind kind of a basis is to connect with your why. In other words, your motivation. What is it that, if I ask you, why do you dive? What's the answer to that? Do you know the answer to that? You should think about that, right? You should have answers to that question at the ready, because diving is hard and it is frustrating and it's filled with disappointment and failure. And to push through that requires that you rely on some grounding, right? Some knowledge of, this is why I do this. This is what I love. I love the challenge. I love learning new dives. I love traveling and competing. I love winning. Whatever it is that drives you, keep an awareness of it in the front of your mind and refer back to it. The next mode that we want to talk about is courage. And this is the one that really makes diving stand out, right? Because diving is, it's weird. We have to deal with real fear. It comes on suddenly. You can be overwhelmed with anxiety. It's time to do the dive. It's time to do the dive. We have a new dive and you have to do it. And today is the day. That can be terribly, terribly overwhelming. So how do we manage these things? Well, fortunately, hopefully you watched our videos on visualization and relaxation. Put one there. I'll put one there. You can click through and check those out. Visualization and relaxation are really going to ground you and help you to stay calm. The relaxation practice that we go through will allow you to, in the face of anxious moments, stressful moments, high stakes competition, big new dives, panic attacks, taking control of your breath is critical. Take control of your breath. By taking control of your breath, we take control of our heart rate. By taking control of our breath and our heart, we can settle our mind. And if you know that and you practice that, it works a charm. It is a really valuable tool. Keep that in your toolbox. Make sure that you have practiced your relaxation techniques and your visualization techniques, because as you face new dives, it is so important to keep your head straight, stay as relaxed as you can be. You're not going to be relaxed. You're going to be keyed up. But you've got to keep your head straight. You've got to visualize that dive over and over again well before you show up on the day. You need to be visualizing at home, at night, days and days in advance. If your coach is working with you on trampoline belts and dry land, that's going to help too. All of those things will come together, but the main thing for you to take care of is your mental state and your preparation. So the best way to incorporate this relaxation technique, visualization technique, positive self-talk, which we'll refer to a little bit more when we talk about stability, is in your what I call the pre-dive ritual. So just before you walk down the board, each diver has a habit, right, of setting up in a particular way. The best divers in the world have a very set pattern they go through each time. I think of it as a pre-flight checklist, like an aircraft pilot, right? They're going through a list of things in their head, a short list, very precise. It will probably contain a little bit of a couple of deep breaths to bring themselves into a relaxed, calm state, right? A quick visualization, so you'll see them take a deep breath, close their eyes. They may move just a little bit as they imagine themselves doing the actual skill. And then for a lot of athletes, there's something called a keyword that they will bring up in their mind just before they walk. And the keys there are that it should be positive, simple, not too detailed, right? So we want to, they can literally be as simple as, you can do this. I'm amazing. Yes. Those kinds of things, just little affirmations. So you go, set up in your stance, take a deep breath, quick visualization, affirmation, walk. And that pattern becomes very set, very rote, very rhythmic, and it allows you to break the habit of standing on the board and waiting for just the right moment to walk. No, there is only one right moment. When the pre-dive ritual is over, you take your first step. And if you make a habit of that on jumps and simple dives that you always do, and you stay very consistent on your pre-dive ritual, this will help you immensely in breaking that pattern of standing on the board and twitching and wobbling your hands or whatever. Set a pattern, stay with it, commit to that pattern. The next mode we're going to talk about is poise, and this is another unusual moment in a diver's experience compared to many others, and that is when things go badly. So courage, we're sort of containing in the meet is too big for me, I'm scared, the dive is too big for me, I can't get myself to go. That's our courage component. Now the poise is, I went and it didn't go great, and now I need to recover, right? Poise, regaining composure. So that is, I have, and here's the scenario that I think best applies. You're in the warm-up. There's 5 minutes left in the warm-up. You're going to do your last dive before you get ready to go. You're actually third in the meet lineup. So you're going soon, and you wipe out. Last dive of warm-up, you get creamed. Now you have to compete. You have to regain your composure. You have to do it quickly, and you have to do it effectively. And you have to let go of what just happened, because it actually has no bearing whatsoever on the competition. No scores were given. It means nothing toward the meet, but you are carrying that baggage. So we are going to, first, there's the hit and the swim to the wall, and you're hanging on the wall and you're trying to maintain your poise and your composure there, and that is breathing through pain. We breathe through pain just like a pregnant lady in labor. It's a very appropriate maneuver. Breathing through it, trying to slow your breath, trying to slow your heart rate, just like our relaxation practice. It's a very intense practice at that point. Another thing that's very helpful to a lot of people is to make sure that you don't sort of go inside of yourself. You want to stay aware of your surroundings, and that seems to be helpful in grounding people and bringing them back into a calm state. And that can be as simple as looking at the clock and trying to find something that's red, or oh, I know Bob. Where's Bob? Bob's around here somewhere. Did he see that? He's probably laughing, right? That kind of thing can be super helpful to break the spell, as because when you smack, it's really easy to get caught up in the panic of it and the pain of it. When you are observing external stimulus to try to settle yourself down, it can be useful to engage multiple senses. What do you smell? What do you hear? I'm not sure what the science is behind this, but I do understand that this can be helpful, and I have witnessed it myself. When I'm working with a diver and they smack, the first thing I do is I tell them to look at the clock, and I tell them to watch the second hand on the clock. And I say, all right, now it's at the top now, and by the time it gets to the bottom, you're going to feel better. You're not going to feel great yet, but by the time it gets to the bottom, you'll feel better. And then I check back in with them after that 30 seconds, and then I tell them when it gets back to the top, they're going to feel well enough that they can get out and get back in line, and their back's just going to be warm, or their stomach is just going to be warm. And what I'm doing there is I'm subtly suggesting, oh, you're getting back up. You're going back into workout, because this is not an emergency, right? And that's an important distinction, and something that we learn as coaches over time, is that an awful lot of the time when we smack, it feels like you're going to die, but you're fine. You're okay. This is an experience of pain that you can learn from, and you don't have to go to the hospital, right? Obviously, your mileage may vary, and you need to pay attention and know the difference as a coach and as an athlete. If you're disoriented, confused, you've likely been concussed. It's time to stop practice. That's not funny. But working through this pain is an important lesson in diving, and it's something that people can get a whole lot better. Sometimes, in the right setting, you can laugh, because sometimes it is really funny looking when you're flying through the air and then you splat. This is something that has to be sort of gauged in the moment with the divers who are there, because it's very easy to feel like somebody's making fun of you and to feel attacked, and that's never what the atmosphere that we want to set up. But sometimes it is delightful to have everybody crack up after a good smack. We all have experienced it. We know how painful it is, and yet it's still pretty funny. But hopefully those are some strategies that will help you to regain composure, regain poise. We can apply this when you're feeling really panicked, really overwhelmed. It's that really intense, overwhelmed moment where we just need to breathe through it and regain our composure. And the last mode that we want to talk about is stability, or sharpening the saw. How do we keep improving our mental toughness and our mindset in general? My favorite analogy with this is what I call weeding the mental garden, right? Which is, if you think of your mind as a garden, in a garden you're going to decide what you want to grow, right? This isn't an accident. You are specifically going to grow what you want to see, and anything that isn't what you want to see in that garden, that's a weed. That's got to go. You're going to pluck it, right? And that's what's going to allow the plants that you want to flourish. And it's exactly the same in your mind. And that is, how do you talk to yourself inside your mind? For most of us, there is a little voice inside of our head all the time that is narrating our experience in life. And that voice can sometimes be very supportive and very trustworthy and very truthful and very helpful. Other times, the voice inside your head can be a troll, and it can tear you down, and it can undermine your confidence and criticize you. I know, it's me. It's my voice, I know. But it still seems like and has the effect of someone else tearing you down. And it's you. You're doing it to yourself. So let's be aware of the kinds of things that we're saying to ourselves. When you succeed, do you tell yourself you were lucky? Or do you tell yourself that this is the result of hard work? When you fail, do you examine and understand that failure and allow yourself some forgiveness in understanding it? Or do you just berate yourself? Oh, I'm stupid. I'm never going to be any good at this. I knew I wasn't going to be able to do it. That can be very destructive and really limits your willingness to pursue things over the long term. And as we've talked about, in this concept of grit, you have to stay with it. Well, how do you stay with it? You have to be encouraging to yourself and forgiving, because you are going to make mistakes. Forgive and move on and keep pushing on it. That's the key to success. So setting the groundwork, right? Weeding your mental garden to encourage the ability to return to action and not get discouraged. That's when we monitor our self-talk. You're going to catch yourself saying mean things to yourself, right? It's just what happens. And the thing to do is to simply interrupt that thought and substitute a better thought. And sometimes it's just no. And yes, you are talking to yourself, but you need to stand up to that voice inside your head and say, no, that's not true. I'm not an idiot. It was a good try, and I'm going to try again, right? And keep encouraging yourself. It seems a little bit crazy. This is tried and true, works brilliantly. Keep at it, because it's a little bit difficult to, especially if you spent your whole life with that voice inside your head being mean to you and you think you deserve that. There are a lot of us that have a troll inside our heads that has been beating on us for a long time. Fight back. It'll work. You can straighten that thing out and get him talking nice. That voice is telling a story, right? And we oftentimes will craft a little story around our lives to explain our behavior, right? I love to cook. I'm a great athlete. I'm not a very good student. We have all of these stories about ourselves. Keep an eye on those stories. Some of those stories are not helping you out. And when we talked about earlier, do the things that will benefit you. Identify the behaviors that benefit you as a diver and as a human, and then pursue them relentlessly. Self-talk that is negative, destructive narratives, those things are only true as long as they're true. You can change them, right? All of this stuff, and that's the growth mindset that we've talked about previously. That's negotiable. You decide. Change it. Take control of your story. Take control of your self-talk. Substitute optimal thinking, the kinds of thinking that will help you to succeed. Remember, as we talked about with discipline, and this is the same with stability, Connect with your whys. Why do I do this? What is it I love about this? Why does this make sense in my life? Keep coming back to those and review your progress regularly and make adjustments. So this is the premise of the continual improvement process, right? We look at how things are, we identify issues, we come up with a plan to fix those, and we do it all again. There you go. We have 4 different components of mental toughness to deal with here, from discipline to courage, poise, and stability. Let's take a look at each one of those areas. A lot of this is self-examination. Take some time to pay attention to the way your mind works, pay attention to the way you talk to yourself, and let's start flexing the muscle of mental toughness. Good luck.